Coverage you can count on. This is Way 31 News at 4.
I'm Way 31 Chief Meteorologist Taylor Canoose. A live look outside over Lake Guntersville shows a lot of cloud cover and some passing showers help keeping us cooler than we've been in a long time. I'll walk you through the latest on 31 Triple Doppler coming up.
Now at 4, a terrifying sight as this helicopter fell from the sky and crashed into a Florida apartment building. The very latest on the investigation. And a disturbance at a Friday night football game. New at 4, we bring you the voice of one parent who was at the game as Madison County schools are set to hold a special meeting tomorrow. Thank you for joining us for Way 31 News at 4. I'm Marie Waxel. Dan Schaefer has the night off. We've had a mixed bag of rain and sun all across North Alabama today. Chief Meteorologist Taylor Canoose is tracking more rain on 31 Triple Doppler. Taylor?
That's right. Most of the staying put around Sand Mountain at this hour, but we do have a few passing showers near Decatur and parts of Madison County at this moment. But I do want to start around Marshall and DeKalb counties. That's been the most active area over the past couple of hours. We have rain ongoing in Guntersville, just northeast of Albertville. This particular storm right here is the strongest of the bunch with the capability of producing 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts along with some pea-sized hail possible, frequent lightning and heavy downpours associated with that as well. A weak thunderstorm near and north of Collinsville at the moment and some very isolated showers and storms elsewhere across DeKalb County. A little bit of rain near Hazel Green, especially on the west side of town. Decatur, you've been dealing with this shower over the past hour or so as it's very slow moving, in fact nearly stationary, but does appear to be on the weakening trend, and we should dry out in Decatur pretty soon. Moving forward, the best chance at showers and storms is going to be in northeast Alabama heading into this evening. You can see it's going to initially be moving north and then may backtrack to the west a little bit as we head into the late evening hours. So we may not be done with the rain threat necessarily in Huntsville. Between now through about midnight is going to be our best chance at additional showers and storms. Heavy downpours thanks to slow moving storms could lead to some isolated areas of flooding. A low threat at 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts with the strongest of the storms. And we do have a little spin in the atmosphere today, so I'm not completely ruling out the threat of a tornado. It's a very, very low threat, but at least something that we are monitoring late this afternoon and early this evening. I'll walk you through the additional chances of storms we have as we head into Tuesday, plus an update on Idalia coming up in a couple minutes.
New at 4, we're hearing from parents this afternoon who were in the middle of the chaotic scene at the Sparkman Hazel Green High School football game Friday, which forced the game to be canceled after a, quote, major disruption occurred. Parents are now weighing in ahead of a special called school board meeting tomorrow on this incident. Let's bring in Way 31's Xavier Wary now. Xavier, one mother described to you the scene as terrifying.
Marie, that is absolutely right. The mother that I spoke with today, she wanted to remain anonymous, but she says that scene was absolutely frightening. She says seeing everyone run around in a panic and not knowing what was going on, well, that was absolutely gut-wrenching.
Grown men looked terrified. Parents were frantically looking for their children. Kids were crying, holding on to each other, people getting trampled, scraped knees. My child ran face first into a wood beam in the dark. You know, it was really, really scary because nobody knew if it was real or not.
Madison County Sheriff deputies were called to Sparkman after it was believed that someone had a gun at the game. Madison County Schools released a statement on Facebook saying in part, quote, there were no weapons used or shown during the incident. We can also share that there were no physical altercations or injuries. We also want to share that the incident was caused by individuals who wanted to strike fear in the crowd. Now, Madison County Schools says that they will enhance their safety measures at sporting events and other activities as well, and that board meeting tomorrow will be happening at 5:30 at the Madison County Board of Education building. And coming up on Way 31 News at 5, hear from that same parent on what she wants to come out of tomorrow's meeting. Marie, back to you.
All right, thank you for that update, Xavier. A second man is now out of the hospital and faces charges in connection to a shooting on the Alabama A&M campus. Huntsville police say Christopher Thomas was released to the jail after leaving the hospital this weekend. He's now charged with assault for the campus shooting where he and another suspect were injured. Willie Nance was previously charged for the August 22nd shooting. Well, just minutes ago, the University of North Carolina ended a lockdown after an apparent shooting on campus. campus. Students there spent 3 hours indoors and away from windows, sheltered in place while police hunted the suspect. University leaders gave an all clear, but they have yet to release information on whether anyone had been shot or arrested. Testimony started today over a deadly stabbing at a Huntsville Waffle House. This is new video of murder suspect Bryant Davis in court. Prosecutors called 5 witnesses so far to testify about the 2021 stabbing death of Joshua Bankston. 4 of the witnesses worked at the Waffle House. They testified about a fight between the 2 men and then ordering Davis to put his knife down after that attack. A setback now for a Decatur woman set on fire and burned while she slept. Waay 31 spoke with Anna Willis's sister after her skin graft surgery last week. We've learned she's now tested positive for a staph infection. Willis's husband, Riley, is accused of burning her. He remains in the Morgan County Jail without bond on assault and arson charges. Only on Waay 31 this afternoon, we were there as State Senator Tim Melson made his first public appearance after surviving a near-death experience while in a foreign country. Melson went back to work today, picking up where he left off, serving his community. On June 28th, he suffered a heart attack while in South Korea recruiting teachers for Alabama. For days, it was touch and go for Melson, and at one point telling the family to prepare for the worst. According to Melson, lots of prayers and support from others and help from a higher power, he was able to make his recovery and make it back home.
Well, I'm very fortunate. Yeah, I mean, I really am, because when they call your wife and tell you you're not going to make it, and your son gets your CT scan and your MRI and all that, and it's not favorable, but then they improve and everything goes well. You know, there's well, it does. It says there's a power up above working and helping me all I can. So
glad to see him back and doing well. Today's return put Melson right back to work on the new Lauderdale Ag Center Committee, which he currently chairs. Former President Donald Trump's trial related to the January 6th Capitol riot is set to start one day before Alabama's presidential primary. That trial date was set today as Georgia prosecutors prepare for another trial involving Trump and 18 co-defendants. ABC's M. Wynn has those details.
Former President Trump and his 18 co-defendants are now set for their first court appearance in their election interference case in Fulton County, Georgia. A local judge has determined they will be arraigned separately in 15-minute increments on September 6th, with Trump going first.
We'll see the former president enter some kind of plea along with the other defendants.
One of the co-defendants, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, had a hearing in federal court today, arguing that his trial should be moved from Fulton County to federal jurisdiction. And in a surprise move, Meadows took the stand to make his case. District Attorney Fani Willis has accused Meadows of taking part in a sweeping conspiracy to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in the state. Meadows was on the phone call between Trump and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger following Trump's election loss.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Meadows claims his case should be moved to federal court because the actions he undertook were part of his chief of staff duties and were done at the direction of former President Trump. During today's hearing, Meadows testified that part of his job was to be in almost every meeting the president had. The DEA had subpoenaed Raffensperger and other witnesses to make her case that Meadows violated the Hatch Act, which bars federal employees from using their official roles to engage in partisan political activity. At least 4 other defendants are also seeking to move their case to federal court.
And I think if you look at it, it was most likely that he was operating as a part of the Republican Party, which would be a political role and not his official role as the chief of staff.
And in Washington, a judge ruled that Trump's federal trial on charges related to trying to overturn the 2020 election, including his rhetoric leading up to the deadly January 6th attack on the Capitol, will begin March 4th of next year, the day before Super Tuesday on the GOP primary calendar. M. Wynn, ABC News, Washington.
Right now in Florida, thousands of people are buying plywood and stocking up on supplies because of Tropical Storm Idalia. It's expected to become a major hurricane before making landfall along Florida's Big Bend along the Gulf of Mexico. ABC's Rena Roy has the story.
Preps are underway in Florida as Idalia churns toward the state's Gulf Coast, rapidly strengthening and expected to make landfall as a major storm.
Wind and surge could be significant, 6 to 11 feet, and heavy rain as well.
With that storm surge likely, people in Tampa stocking up on sandbags.
We're college students, so we're just trying to prepare as best as we can.
Forecasters warn Idalia could also generate tornadoes.
It's better to be prepared versus not prepared and have regrets.
Duke Energy mobilizing about 4,500 workers to respond to potential power outages. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis getting a pledge of federal support from the White House after declaring a state of emergency for more than 30 counties, about half the state.
Floridians in the path of this storm, though, should be prepared to lose power, particularly if it ends up in a Big Bend major impact. There's a lot of trees, you're going to have a lot of power lines down.
Tampa International Airport shutting down at midnight, with forecasters expecting Idalia to make landfall Wednesday morning.
Everybody on the Florida Gulf Coast, just watch and be prepared and take the necessary action to protect you and your family.
After hitting Florida, Idalia is also expected to bring heavy rain and a chance of flash flooding in southern Georgia and the Carolinas before leaving the East Coast on Thursday. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
And we're just getting new information in right now about Tropical Storm Idalia. Let's bring in Waay 31 Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust with that update. Taylor, what have you learned now?
Well, now Idalia is on the doorstep of being officially a hurricane with max sustained winds now at 70 miles per hour. We need it to be 73 miles per hour or stronger for it to be a Category 1, and that's likely going to happen later on this evening. It's also beginning its movement north. It's slowly moving north, but eventually is going to move into the Gulf by tomorrow. It's quickly going to intensify. Now forecast to be a Category 3 by tomorrow night, 120 mile per hour winds as it's open over the open Gulf waters, and then may stay that strong or just shy of it as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida by the time we get to early Wednesday morning, making landfall likely near or shortly after sunrise on Wednesday around the Florida Gulf Coast, affecting the Carolina coast and even parts of Georgia as we head into the later day part of the day Wednesday and into early Thursday as well. We have hurricane warnings in effect from Tampa up toward the Big Bend area of the Florida Gulf Coast, and here's just a snapshot of where the strongest of the wind is going to be. Wind is not the only factor. Extreme storm surge along with heavy rainfall will all be in play here, but the strongest of the wind, as you can see, looks to be right around the Big Bend area and then weakens as it moves inland during the day on Wednesday. What can we expect locally out of this? Really, it's not much. We could see some breezy north winds on Wednesday, gusting upwards of 25 miles per hour, but it is likely that we stay entirely dry locally in North Alabama from this system. But again, if your travels take you southeast of our location, be aware there could be some issues over the coming days.
Coming up in our next half hour, this fire rescue helicopter drops out of the sky and into an apartment building. A look at the devastation as officials work to determine what happened. And today marks the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Martin Luther King Jr.'s family comments on what he might say today.
Coverage you can count on. This is Waay 31 News at 4 with Dan Schaefer, Marie Waxel, and Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust.
college student is dead after just returning to campus in South Carolina. Police say he was shot in the middle of the night when he tried to enter a home but was at the wrong address. ABC's Derek Dennis has the details.
The family of 20-year-old Nicholas Anthony D'Onofrio, a University of South Carolina junior, shot and killed after he apparently tried to enter the wrong house, is heartbroken. Releasing a statement saying, "We are very proud of Nick. He was the son every parent would wish for. He was funny, smart, and compassionate, and loved life."
South Holly Street. Called to the subject working the door.
Authorities say just before 2 a.m. Saturday, they got a call about a reported home burglary in the southeast section of Columbia, just 2 miles from the university. That call was quickly upgraded to shots fired. D'Onofrio found by first responders on the front porch, shot in the upper body on the same street where he lived in an off-campus frat house. D'Onofrio, originally from Connecticut, died at the scene.
I feel personally that there's many things that could have been done besides firing shots.
It's a similar case to another shooting 4 months ago in Kansas City, where teenager Ralph Yarl was shot but survived after going to the wrong house to pick up his siblings. The suspected shooter, homeowner Andrew Lester, was charged with felony assault and armed criminal action. He's pleaded not guilty and is out on $200,000 bond. As for the case in South Carolina, police have so far not released the name of the shooter, nor have they filed any charges. D'Onofrio's father says he moved his son into his frat house just last week before his son started his junior year. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
There's now a growing memorial outside a Dollar General after 3 people died in what authorities are now calling a hate-motivated crime. The FBI is now investigating Saturday's shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. Police identified the suspect as 21-year-old Ryan Palmer. They say he shot 11 rounds into the store before he took his own life. Jacksonville's mayor says it's time for the hate to stop.
The division has to stop. The hate has to stop. The rhetoric has to stop. And we've got to start seeing each other's humanity, hearing each other, listening to each other, talking to each other, and recognizing that no matter what, we are us. And we are all the same flesh, blood, and bones, and we should treat each other that way.
The community gathered for a prayer vigil over the weekend to remember the 3 people killed and to support their families. Well, today marks the 60th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington, a march still considered one of the greatest racial justice demonstrations in U.S. history. Over the weekend, you can see here a host of Black civil rights leaders and attendees rallied to the same spot where nearly 250,000 people gathered back in 1963. Martin Luther King Jr.'s son spoke about what he thinks his father would have to say today.
Dad would probably say, now is the time. We must preserve, protect, and expand democracy. We must ensure that voting rights is protected for all people. We must ensure that our women and children are treated fairly. We must end gun violence.
After the speeches, the crowd marched to pay their respects at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial.
Now, Waay 31 Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust with 31 Triple Doppler.
The on and off again rain, definitely welcome, but
Yeah.
whew, that humidity out there, it is something else.
Yeah, heat is gone. The humidity is not left yet.
Yes.
We have to wait a couple more days to get some dry air to move on in. But that rain has helped cool us off, that is for sure. And we'll get another check of 31 Triple Doppler here in a moment. But hey, let's take a look outside on the Waay 31 Skycam network, where we have more clouds than sunshine on this Monday afternoon. And down in Guntersville, for example, we have some passing showers in that area. 70s for a handful of us, like in Guntersville, as well as in Fort Payne. Lawrenceburg, Tennessee at 77. Most of us are checking in with low to mid 80s at this hour, which is a far cry from what we were dealing with yesterday afternoon. It is 16 degrees cooler than this time yesterday in Fort Payne, 12-degree lower drop in Decatur. Now, most of the rain is near and east of I-65, as we had mentioned in the forecast earlier today and over the weekend. Let's get a closer look at what we're dealing with around Sand Mountain right now, where the bulk of the showers and storms are ongoing. It is widespread rain, and these storms are slow movers, which means there is a bit of an enhanced risk for some flooding concerns as long as these storms stick around. So western DeKalb County, we're dealing with heavy rainfall, occasional lightning, and perhaps some gusty winds as well, around 30 to 40 miles per hour. We're catching a bit of a break right now in Fort Payne, but some of these could drift back your direction before too long. From Boaz up to Albertville and Guntersville, all these storms are in the neighborhood, so be aware that you could get more heavy downpours. Lighter, more isolated showers ongoing in Morgan County at the moment. We have had some steady rain around Decatur over the past hour or two. Should see that trend drier in the near term. An additional downpour near Ardmore. Again, that one is slow moving and a couple developing in northern Limestone County. If we are going to see severe weather, as I kind of showed you there, the best chance is going to be around Sand Mountain. So northeast Alabama from Marshall over to DeKalb County, perhaps Jackson County, could see a couple of severe storms with damaging wind being our primary concern moving forward. Future radar shows those storms staying mainly in northeast Alabama as we head into this evening. Some of the outflow from these storms could trigger additional development farther to the west, but I think those of you around the shoals are likely going to be dry for the remainder of the day today, perhaps a stray shower overnight tonight. By the time you head out the door tomorrow morning, we are looking at quieter conditions in the forecast here. We are looking at nothing more than spotty showers when you step outside tomorrow morning. Should be a little bit quieter compared to what we dealt with earlier this morning. By the afternoon, one more round of pop-up showers and storms possible across the area. We are looking at primarily, again, east of I-65 for the best chance at thunderstorm development. These are going to be a little bit more isolated than what we have seen this afternoon and earlier today, but a handful of you could once again get those scattered downpours, occasional lightning strikes. No severe weather threat expected during Tuesday afternoon. By Tuesday evening, that rain threat wraps up, and from that point through the rest of the week, it is likely going to be dry. So some of you may be grateful for the rain we get because the extended forecast does look pretty quiet. As far as that humidity is concerned, it is going to stick around tomorrow, but drops in a big way after that on Wednesday and Thursday. So if you are just sick of the humidity we have had for quite a while, we are going to at least get a break from that as we head into the second half of this work week. Your temperatures tomorrow look like this, very similar to today, starting in the 70s, only really climbing to the low and mid 80s tomorrow afternoon. A high of 84 in Huntsville, 85 in Moulton, and 85 in Muscle Shoals. We're not looking at too big of a difference on Wednesday, maybe a couple degrees warmer with a high of 85 in Scottsboro. And then on Thursday, more of the same, mid 80s in the forecast, 86 in Huntsville, as well as out west toward the Shoals. Enjoy the somewhat cooler weather while we have it. As we head toward next week, it is likely going to be once again warmer than average. And what that means for us here locally in the first week of September is 90s are back in the forecast. And that actually gets going on Labor Day weekend. It is going to be a dry weekend, so that's good news for your outdoor plans. But we are expecting highs to be in the low 90s, and that will likely stick around for much of next week as well. So if you're making early plans for Labor Day weekend, again, outdoor plans good to go, but it is going to be dry and it is going to be hot. The good news, Marie, it does not look like it's going to be brutally humid in the extended forecast.
All right.
So those 90s are back, but maybe not necessarily the triple-digit heat index values.
We will take it.
We'll manage it, yeah.
All right. Well, tarmac delays lead to a big fine for American Airlines. How much they'll pay for keeping flyers on planes too long. A retail theft scheme busted. ABC's Morgan Norwood reports on the arrest while breaking down a growing crime trend.
10 people are under arrest after a 2-day sting operation at this Nike store in Los Angeles. Police say they've recovered more than $3,000 of merchandise, but say that's a drop in the bucket compared to how much has been taken from that store in recent months.
Nike, over a year period, lost close to $1 million just in that one store.
The National Retail Federation says organized retail crime is on the rise, accounting for $94.5 billion in losses in 2021, driven by inflation and what critics say is a lack of law enforcement.
It's extremely difficult to quantify the degree of the problem because not a lot of information is shared.
In this shocking incident, a group of juvenile suspects robbing a sporting goods store, taking off with BB guns before being apprehended by police. Some retailers taking matters into their own hands. Walgreens has opened an anti-theft store in Chicago. All but 2 aisles of merchandise are locked up and need to be ordered from a kiosk. And Dollar Tree, which says shoplifting is a factor in falling profits, is removing some products from stores in certain locations. Others are shutting their doors. Nordstrom yesterday closed its flagship store in San Francisco after more than 30 years, amid concerns about crime and declining foot traffic. Morgan Norwood, ABC News, New York.
The United Auto Workers Union says its members have overwhelmingly voted to authorize a strike. They say this is their plan if a deal is not reached with Detroit's Big Three before September 14th. Issues with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis include wage hikes, cost of living adjustments, and pension benefits. Analysts expect a more than 50% chance of a walkout. American Airlines now has one of the largest fines ever for holding passengers on board for too long. The Department of Transportation ordered them to pay $4.1 million for tarmac delays on 43 flights between 2018 and 2021. 5,800 passengers were impacted. Half the fines paid will go to the government and the other half to passengers. Shares of Rite Aid plunged today after a Wall Street Journal report that the pharmacy giant is preparing to file for bankruptcy. It could be a move to stop lawsuits against the company. Those lawsuits pertain to the opioid epidemic, accusing the pharmacy chain of filling hundreds of thousands of unlawful prescriptions between 2014 and 2019. Rite Aid has not yet responded. Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average opened the week with a gain of 213 points. The Nasdaq is up 114 points on this Monday, and the S&P 500 finished 28 points higher, starting the week in the green across the board. Next and new at 4:30, memorials are growing for the victims of a racially motivated shooting in Florida. What we're learning now about the attacker. Plus, a jailer ends up behind bars in an unusual drug bust. Details on the other side of the break.
A stormy afternoon continues for Sand Mountain, while those of you farther west are drying out this afternoon. I'll tell you where the rain is going to head as we move into this evening, coming up next.
Coverage you can count on. This is Way 31 News at 4:30.
Thank you for staying with us for Way 31 News at 4:30. I'm Marie Waxel. An active 31 triple Doppler at this hour. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Taylor Canoose now. Taylor, most of the activity now in the Sand Mountain area.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll start over Lake Guntersville, where, as you can see, the rain coming down at this hour, and that has cooled us off to the 70s, where the rain has fallen this afternoon, and that is primarily around the Sand Mountain area. Shoals, you're pretty quiet at this moment with not much rain, but still some ongoing storms across western DeKalb County, much of Marshall County as well, dealing with hit and miss downpours. There are occasional lightning strikes in the mix here. Not seeing too strong of wind at this very moment, but there is at least a low-end chance at damaging straight-line wind with any storms we see, especially in this area late this afternoon and through the early evening. I do want to zoom in real quick on southeast Madison County around New Hope. We have new developing showers that are pretty heavy that have developed here recently, and they are trending to develop farther to the north and west here. Some of the outflow from those Marshall County storms producing these new pop-ups. So just heads up in Huntsville, keep an eye on this. We could see it drift your direction within the next hour or two. But primarily northeast Alabama will be the area to watch between now and 8 o'clock. Some of that could drift westward as we head into the late evening hours, but should weaken quite a bit as we get after sunset and lose some of that daytime heating. Late tonight, we are expected to dry out for the most part, and I think most of you will be dry as you step outside tomorrow morning. Temperatures look good this evening, 70s for most of us through the evening hours. We'll likely see lows near 70 tonight and highs in the 80s again, not only tomorrow, but for the next few days. A little taste of fall weather with those highs in the mid 80s and eventually lows down near 60 by Wednesday night. That is a limited time fall offer. Summer heat back in the extended forecast. I'll walk you through the Labor Day weekend outlook coming up in a couple minutes.
A detention deputy with the Coleman County Sheriff's Office is behind bars this afternoon. Deputies arrested this guy, Terrence Darnell Kirkland, Friday afternoon. Kirkland is charged with distribution of dangerous drugs. Well, he's accused of trying to sell marijuana to another member of law enforcement out in the community.
99.9% of law enforcement will always do what's right, but we have that 1%. And the one thing that I'm very proud of with the men and women of the Sheriff's Office is we hold our 1% accountable.
Kirkland is still being held at the Coleman County Jail without bond. Time now 4:36. New details are being shared about the suspected gunman in what authorities call a racially motivated shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. ABC's Rena Roy digs into the gunman's past and looks how the victims are being remembered.
A growing memorial outside this Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida, after police say a self-proclaimed white supremacist using an AR-15 style rifle and handgun opened fire, killing 3 black people.
I urge us all not to look for sense in a senseless act of violence.
The suspect, identified by police as 21-year-old Ryan Christopher Palmetter, firing off 11 rounds, hitting 52-year-old Angela Michelle Carr's Kia while she sat in a parking lot, killing her. Authorities say he then walked in, shooting and killing 19-year-old employee Anolt Joseph Laguerre Jr. and 29-year-old Gerald Gallion, the father of a 4-year-old girl.
She's so young, and all she knew was her dad.
The gunman texted his dad to go into his room, where police say he found a last will and testament and suicide note. The family calling police, but the rampage was over after about 10 minutes. The shooter taking his own life as officers arrived on scene. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's a leading candidate for president, was booed by residents in Jacksonville as he spoke about the shootings.
Florida stands with the community. Help is on the way.
Some saying his policies and rhetoric attacking diversity in the state are in part to blame for creating an atmosphere of intolerance.
Respectfully, Governor, he was not a scumbag. He was a racist.
Investigators say Palmetter was involuntarily held for 72 hours at a mental health facility as a minor in 2017, but that he had no prior criminal history and legally purchased his weapons. Authorities say he had writings containing racist and hateful ideology. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Today marks the 60th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington. The march, still considered one of the greatest racial justice demonstrations in U.S. history. Over the weekend, a host of black civil rights leaders and attendees rallied at the same spot where nearly 250,000 people gathered back in 1963. King's son spoke about what he thinks his father would have to say today.
Dad would probably say, now is the time. We must preserve, protect, and expand democracy. We must ensure that voting rights is protected for all people. We must ensure that our women and children are treated fairly. We must end gun violence.
All new at 5, we'll take a closer look at the impact of today and its meaning right here in North Alabama. Well, it's no secret your diet impacts your health. There's new evidence now that the types of food you eat, especially later in life, could affect your risk of developing heart disease or cancer.
What you eat for dinner is often guided by what's available or recent cravings, but a more strategic approach can have long-lasting effects. A recent study published in the Journal of Internal Medicine looked at the heart health of 370,000 people, ages 50 through 70, on various diets for more than 20 years. Researchers found diets low in saturated fats like butter and palm oil, but high in plant proteins like beans, tofu, and nuts were associated with less heart disease, cancer, and death in people 50 to 70 years old. On the other hand, people who ate diets high in processed carbs, high in butter, and who got protein from meat struggled with more heart problems, cancers, and deaths from many different causes. The next time you decide to plan a family dinner, especially with grandparents coming, you might want to consider a more plant-based approach to the menu. Choose chicken, fish, or a vegetarian option, lots of fruits, veggies, nuts, and reach for the olive oil instead of butter.
A new study indicates 5 common cancer screenings are not linked to longer lifespans. While mammography, prostate exams, and lung cancer checks are still important, they don't necessarily extend the life of the patient. Researchers emphasize you should still get tested because such evaluations improve outcomes for cancer specifically. They say doctors and patients should be realistic about what tests can accomplish. U.S. Marines killed in a helicopter crash in Australia. We take a look at the investigation now underway.
Coverage you can count on. This is Waay 31 News at 4:30 with Dan Schaefer, Marie Waxel, and Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust.
2 people are dead and 4 others injured after a fire rescue helicopter crashed into an apartment building this morning. Take a look at this terrifying sight from the sky as it falls. FAA investigators confirmed 3 people were on board that helicopter. The pilot died in the crash. 2 other passengers were taken to the hospital. 2 people on the ground were also injured. The FAA is obviously investigating this crash. Well, several Marines remain in the hospital after a fiery aircraft crash killed 3 during drills in Australia. ABC's Melissa Adon has the details.
An urgent investigation underway in the deadly U.S. Marine Osprey crash during a multinational training exercise on Sunday.
I mean, the Osprey is a very unique aircraft. It's effectively a helicopter which turns into a plane in flight. It is a troop carrier. There were 23 people on board.
President Biden and the First Lady offering their condolences to the families of the Marines killed and injured. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also paying tribute and highlighting that Sunday's exercise was an allied effort to counter China's increasing military presence in the Pacific.
We continue to increase the rotational presence of U.S. forces in Australia, which will enhance our maritime domain awareness in the region.
ABC News contributor Steve Ganyard, who is a retired colonel in the Marine Corps, says there is a black box on the Osprey, which will help investigators.
The weather was good at the time, so investigators will look at human factors, but also mechanical problems.
Concerns also mounting from previous deadly Marine Osprey crashes. 16 people have died in 5 other crashes involving the military aircraft since 2012.
This is the second fatal accident in just a few days for the Marine Corps. It may be time to stop, take a step back, and make sure that the Marine Corps is doing everything it needs to do to fly safely.
Just last month, a military investigation found that 5 Marines died in an Osprey crash in California last year due to a catastrophic, unpreventable, and unanticipated mechanical failure. This was when a problem with the clutch caused right engine failure, sending the aircraft out of control. Melissa Adon, ABC News, Los Angeles.
FEMA is awarding $3 billion to help build resiliency against extreme weather. The agency has already approved one project that would combat extreme heat by planting thousands of trees. Other communities have been awarded money to upgrade their energy grid, install new sewer mains, and elevate homes in flood-prone neighborhoods. This money is coming from the infrastructure law Congress passed last year.
Now, Waay 31 Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust with 31 Triple Doppler.
You had it easy tracking the high temperatures and all that heat last week,
Yeah.
and now 31 Triple Dopplers looking almost like a Christmas tree out there in the eastern part of our area.
Yeah, it's definitely been lightened up in Sand Mountain this afternoon, and it's been a while since we've had some healthy rain, so not necessarily a bad thing as long as we can avoid the severe stuff. And we're crossing our fingers that will end up being the case. But let's get to 31 Triple Doppler and show you where we have rain falling at this hour, and it is primarily east of I-65, especially around you folks in Sand Mountain. So we'll take a closer look here at a couple of spots, including around Marshall County, where it's been a busy past couple of hours for you folks. We continue to see some heavy downpours near Gunnersville, just south of Albertville, right over Boaz. Arab, just east of town, a strong storm continuing for you folks there. And then in DeKalb County as well, we have some heavy rain that's getting closer to I-59. In fact, it's right over I-59 near Collinsville. Fort Payne, you're catching a break from the rain at the moment, but more could be heading your way as we head into this late afternoon and this evening as well. So multiple things to monitor across the area. We also have a developing thunderstorm in far southeast Madison County, right over New Hope, very slow moving. And that's our primary concern with these, is the fact that they are moving so slowly that they could pile up the rain pretty quickly and lead to some flooding problems. We did have a flash flood warning earlier this morning in the north side of Huntsville. Things have since quieted down there. Meanwhile, farther west, we have some hit or miss showers near Decatur at this moment, and also a downpour that continues near Ardmore. So again, near and east of I-65 is where we have primarily the active weather, and the reason for that is that's where our nearly stationary boundary is located. Near and south of that boundary, it is muggy, it's still warm. We have a lot of energy in place for these storms to develop. A little bit quieter to the north side of this boundary, and that's going to be our trend moving forward. This boundary lingers around northeast Alabama heading into Tuesday. and provides us additional chances at showers and storms tomorrow. Right now, we have 70s in a few spots, Guntersville, Fort Payne, as well as Haleyville. The rest of us are in the low to mid 80s, which is a lot more comfortable than it's been over the past 7 to 10 days. Overnight low of 71 in Huntsville with scattered storms possible, especially during this evening. We should trend drier late in the night, but by tomorrow afternoon, one more chance at showers and storms will be possible. 40% chance in Huntsville. Forecast high of 84 degrees. Again, cooler than average for late August. Let's walk through future radar. And again, it's northeast Alabama that has the best chance at storms this evening. Much of it clearing out shortly after we get to sunset, after midnight rather. Could see a little bit of enhancement later in the night, but not much. And by sunrise, we are looking at quiet conditions for the most part. Tomorrow afternoon, a handful of showers and storms redevelop primarily east of I-65. Does not look like they'll stick around too long. By tomorrow evening, most of us dry out, and from that point on, it is looking like we will be dry for the remainder of the week. The latest on Tropical Storm Idalia shows that it is now a strong tropical storm with 70-mile-per-hour sustained winds, very close to hurricane strength, and expected to get there by late tonight and into tomorrow morning. It's going to continue to strengthen all the way to what is now forecast to be Category 3 strength winds by the time it approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. This is going to then curve east. So those of us locally in North Alabama probably won't see a drop of rain associated with this storm. It's just going to get a little breezy on Wednesday with gusts up to 25 miles per hour possible. Enjoy the cooler weather we're expecting these next few days because the heat returns in time for Labor Day weekend. It is going to be sunny each of the 3 days with virtually no chance of rain. So with that in mind, it is going to start to heat back up with highs in the low 90s. Thankfully, not terribly humid weather is in the forecast. Those 90s are likely here to stay most of next week. So even though we're flipping the calendar to September, we are not done with that summer weather just yet. And we all knew that. We just didn't want to believe it.
Right. Yeah, it's fine. Seeing those lows, though, in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Nice few day stretch for us coming up.
We will take it. All right, thanks, Taylor. A mother and child reunite after not knowing the other existed for decades. Cameras were rolling the first time they laid eyes on each other. One man meets his mother for the first time after spending 42 years not knowing she even existed. After Jimmy's mother had him, hospital workers took him from her and told her he died. Jimmy was later put up for adoption with papers that listed he had no living relatives. He later found he was part of a political child trafficking ring that took tens of thousands of babies from the country of Chile. Jimmy was able to connect with nonprofit organizations that helped him find his family. What you're looking at is that emotional reunion, 42 years in the making. Coming up next on Waay 31 News at 5, remembering Martin Luther King Jr.'s important speech that took place in Washington 60 years ago, the local impact it has on us in Alabama.
Coverage you can count on. This is Waay 31 News at 5.
I'm Waay 31 Chief Meteorologist Taylor Canoes tracking scattered showers and thunderstorms on this Monday afternoon. Live look at Lake Guntersville shows that wet weather continues for some of you. The latest look at 31 Triple Doppler coming up.
Parents are expressing outrage after Friday night's football game between Sparkman and Hazel Green High Schools. Waay 31's Xavier Wary is standing by with a live report after speaking with parents today. The president is expected to speak at an event honoring the 60th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington any minute now. Waay 31 spoke with Alabama's NAACP's president about the significance of today's remembrance. Thank you for joining us for Waay 31 News at 5. I'm Marie Waxel. Dan Schaefer has the night off. For the first time in a while, that rain gear came in handy today. Waay 31 Chief Meteorologist Taylor Canoost is tracking rain chances for the rest of the evening and tomorrow for us.
Yeah, we had a stormy start to the day across parts of the Tennessee Valley, including in Huntsville, where we had a report of about a half-inch of rain falling in 5 minutes time on the north side of Huntsville. So it's pretty heavy downpours happening earlier today and continuing right now. I want to start by zooming into Sand Mountain, where we have some moderate to heavy rain in western DeKalb County, much of Marshall County, far southern parts of Jackson County, and far southeast Madison County, including near New Hope. These are not severe. They are unlikely to become severe. The strongest of the storms could produce some stronger wind gusts, but that's about the extent of the severe weather threat. Our main concern as we head into dinner time in this evening is going to be the potential for some flooding, because these are very slow moving storms, hardly moving at all, in fact. So the rain could pile up pretty quickly. Switching to our Huntsville Decatur live Doppler radar, you can see that rain back in southeast Madison County, some isolated downpours in Limestone, as well as far eastern parts of Lawrence County, very close to Decatur at this very moment. Northeast Alabama will primarily be the area to watch as we head into the next several hours. Again, a low threat for damaging wind gusts, but mainly the fact that these are so slow moving will cause somewhat of a flooding threat in those locations. As for Huntsville, we're looking at temperatures that will fall to the 70s later on this evening. More 80s in the forecast over the coming days. I'll let you know when the heat's going to return to the area coming up in a couple minutes.
Thanks for that update, Taylor. Madison County schools set their sights on safety improvements at high school football games after a major disturbance at the Sparkman-Hazel Green game Friday night. The Madison County Board of Education will hold a special board meeting tomorrow evening at 5:30. In the meantime, Waay 31's Xavier Wary joins us this evening. And Xavier, you spoke with a parent who was at the game. What does she hope to hear from the school board tomorrow night?
Marie, it is, well, first off, this parent, she tells me that it was a pretty terrifying experience for her and her daughter at that game, but she wants the board to kind of present some plans about some new and improved safety precautions, and she says that she doesn't want to hear anything about how much it'll cost. She doesn't want to hear anything about funding issues, because she believes that parents in this area will be willing to pitch in.
I'm hoping to hear a lot of increased security precautions. I know Decatur City Schools are using a clear bag policy, security searches, weapon detection systems. I'm hoping to hear that something like that is in the works for Madison County schools.
Now, this all stems from the major disturbance at the game Friday night. It was Sparkman's first game of the high school football season, and it got suspended at halftime when fans rushed the field to get away from what they suspected was a dangerous scene. Now, officials have reported that no gun or weapon was found. However, it was still a pretty frightening and dangerous experience for all of those that were involved. Stick with us, because we will have more on this story coming up on Waay 31 News at 6. I'm reporting live outside of Sparkman High School this evening. Xavier Wary, Waay 31 News.
Police arrest a second person after last Tuesday's shooting on the Alabama A&M campus. Huntsville police booked 20-year-old Christopher Thomas into the Madison County Jail on an assault charge. 23-year-old Willie Nance remains in jail for an assault charge as well. Investigators say this shooting was an isolated incident. The trial began today for a man charged with a murder at a Huntsville area Waffle House in 2021. A jury will now weigh the evidence in the case against Bryant Davis. The 25-year-old's accused of stabbing Joshua Bankston to death at the Waffle House on University Drive. 5 witnesses testified today, including 4 Waffle House employees. Time now 5:04. A Decatur woman recovering from severe burns is now battling a staph infection. Decatur police say Anna Willis was set on fire by her husband inside their apartment. Willis is at the University of Alabama Birmingham's burn unit, where her sister says she has a long road of recovery ahead of her. Her husband, Riley Willis III, is behind bars without bond and has been charged with domestic violence assault and arson. A detention deputy with the Coleman County Sheriff's Office is now behind bars for trying to sell marijuana to another member of law enforcement. Investigators arrested 28-year-old Terrence Kirkland. Kirkland's charged with distribution of dangerous drugs. He remains in the Coleman County Detention Center awaiting a bond hearing. A medical marijuana company who planned to open a dispensary in Decatur is now suing the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. Chicago-based Verano Holdings was originally awarded a license when the commission first awarded them back in June. The commission would then pause the licenses due to finding issues with their grading. So when they awarded them for a second time in August, Verano did not receive a license. The company feels losing their license violates the commission's authority. It was granted. Time now 5:05. Only on Waay 31 tonight, State Senator Tim Melson made his triumphant return today to the public eye, and we were there. You might recall he suffered a heart attack last month while overseas. Melson says he received great care from doctors in both South Korea and here in Alabama. Today, Melson took a big step in his recovery by getting back to work at the Lauderdale Agriculture Center Committee meeting. Melson, speaking exclusively with Waay 31, says he can't thank you enough for all of your prayers.
Oh, listen, I want to thank them all for their prayers and well wishes, and you know, there was a lot of people praying for me, and it meant a lot. You know, when you can put politics to the side and just remember everybody's here together, and in the big picture, somebody's life means more than, you know, than politics. It meant a lot.
How great it is to see him on the mend. Melson says his recovery is a perfect example of all people from all walks of life working together to help one another. Well, many people are taking time to remember a key moment in the civil rights movement, the 60th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech and the March on Washington. Waay 31's Maddie McCaffrey spoke with Alabama's president of the NAACP and is live now with what he shared on this monumental anniversary.
Yes, hi Marie. Bernard Simulton said that those words uttered 60 years ago still ring true today. Simulton said that speech is as important today as it was 6 decades ago. He said it's important to teach children about that event, and he says children need to be taught the good, the bad, and the ugly so that we don't repeat the past.
I'm afraid that there are those who are in control of our education system here in the state of Alabama who would like to see those things that are ugly about the state of Alabama history, have those removed from our history and not taught in the state of Alabama, again, as well across the nation.
In 60 years after Dr. King's speech, Huntsville City Schools remain under a desegregation advisory. Coming up all new at 6, we'll hear from the head of Huntsville's Desegregation Advisory Committee on what the state of Huntsville City Schools is like. Reporting live from Huntsville Board of Education, Maddie McCaffrey, Waay 31 News.
Well, the wait is officially over. It is game week. Alabama and Auburn kick off their seasons respectively this Saturday. Waay 31 sports anchor Max Cohan joins us live in studio with a preview of our SEC squads heading into week 1.
Marie, it's been a long offseason, but week 1 is finally here with both the Tide and Tigers set to kick off their 2023 seasons at home this Saturday. Down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama is looking to keep their kickoff streak alive. The Tide have rolled in their first game of the season every year since 2002, with their last week 1 loss coming to UCLA back in 2001. But things seem a little bit different for the Tide this year, as it's the first time in recent memory that there hasn't been a starting quarterback named this close to the first game of the season. All summer long, Jalen Moreau, Tyler Buckner, and Ty Simpson have been competing to be the man under center, but so far no one has won the job, and Coach Saban did not release a depth chart this week and said earlier today that even when a starter for Game 1 is named, that doesn't mean it's his job for Game 2. And it's a similar situation down on the Plains, where the Tigers are preparing to kick off the Hugh Freeze era against UMass in front of a sold-out crowd. Freeze named Peyton Thorne as Auburn's starting quarterback, but made it clear he feels Robbie Ashford needs to get out on the field. The Tigers did release a full depth chart today, but Freeze called it nonsense, saying he doesn't use them. And that aside, he's much more focused on putting the puzzle pieces together and giving the guys who've earned the opportunity a chance to prove what they can do. And of course, he's excited to run out at Jordan-Hare Stadium for the first time as Auburn's head coach. The Tide kick things off against the Blue Raiders on Saturday at 6:30, while the Tigers get the afternoon kick against the Minutemen at 2:30. Of course, we'll have more on that coming up tonight in sports. Live in studio, Max Cohan, Waay 31 Sports.
Still ahead, horrifying video shows an emergency helicopter falling out of the sky. The details we know so far. And Tropical Storm Idalia is set to hit the Florida coast early Wednesday morning. The preparations now underway.
I'm Waay 31 anchor Nikel Williams, a suspect in Lauderdale County's biggest meth bust, wants his multi-million-dollar bond to be cut down. How many pounds of meth authorities say they found, and will the judge consider Jasmine Foster's request? Tonight on Waay 31 News at 6.
Coverage you can count on. This is Waay 31 News at 5 with Dan Schaefer, Marie Waxel, and Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust.
Minutes ago, we learned a University of North Carolina faculty member died in a campus shooting today. That shooting led to a 3-hour lockdown. We're told a suspect was arrested just before 4 this afternoon. Of course, we'll have the latest on this on WayTV.com and throughout the evening, especially next on Waay 31 with ABC News with David Muir. A date for former President Donald Trump's election interference trial has now been set. A federal district judge set it for March 4th. That's the day before the Super Tuesday primary. Prosecutors argued for January 2024, while Trump's defense wanted to delay it 2 years. Today, the prosecution says they turned over all material in the case, which includes more than 12 million pages of evidence. A federal hate crime investigation is underway after 3 people died at a Jacksonville, Florida Dollar General over the weekend. Police say a white gunman with swastikas on his gun chose the Dollar General as his target because of it being in a predominantly black area. He first attempted to enter a historic black school before showing up to the Dollar General. After police entered the store, they discovered he then took his own life.
It does shine a very bright light on what we're dealing with in our community, in our state, and in our country. And I think light is the best disinfectant. So if we can shine a light on the racism that does exist and the fact that it still exists structurally in our country, then we can begin to deal with it.
The shooter had no criminal history, but he was a subject of a Baker Act investigation in 2017 when police held him for 72 hours due to a mental health crisis. Those who are investigated for the Baker Act are usually banned from buying guns. 2 people are now dead and another 4 are injured after a rescue helicopter in Florida fell from the sky. This frightening video was taken as the helicopter fell out of the sky as it crashed into a small apartment. Both the FAA and NTSB say they will quickly begin their investigation into what caused this disaster. Well, there is a part of, I guess, folks lining up along the coast of Florida are now preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, as all of the calmness is expected to change with Tropical Storm Idalia, as it is expected to turn into a major hurricane and make landfall on Wednesday. Patrick Cornell has the very latest on how Floridians are now preparing for its widespread impacts.
States of emergencies are being declared in Florida counties.
Pretty much anybody on the west coast of Florida, I mean, you can see major impacts, and so please prepare accordingly.
It's time to take this storm seriously. Your last full day to prepare is today.
Sandbags are being distributed and put into place. Windows and doors being boarded up, and storm drains are being cleared to prevent clogging and flooding.
It's better to be prepared versus not prepared and have regrets.
Evacuation orders are being issued to areas expecting direct impacts along the Gulf Coast.
We want everyone not to be there when that storm hits. We do not want to find people in their homes.
Schools across the state are closing, and the National Guard has been activated.
We have 2,500 guardsmen and airmen that are pre-staged, but 3,000 more are currently being mobilized and are on the way for a total of 5,500, and they'll have at their disposal 2,400 high-wheel vehicles, 12 aircraft.
Florida officials are not mincing words when warning the wrath Idalia has the potential to unleash.
Storm surge can be life-threatening at just 2 to 3 feet. Some of these areas are going to experience storm surge well over 7 foot. There's not a person in this room that's over 7 foot tall.
These storms are unpredictable. That cone of uncertainty is just that. It's uncertain. It's up to Mother Nature to where the storm's going to hit and to what intensity it's going to hit.
Patrick Cornell, Waay 31 News.
Now, Waay 31 Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust with 31 Triple Doppler.
And let's check in now with Chief Meteorologist Taylor Knust, tracking what's out there in the Gulf.
Yeah, still ongoing situation, a developing situation with Tropical Storm Idalia, now up to 70-mile-per-hour sustained winds. We are on the doorstep of a Category 1 hurricane, and it will likely become a hurricane, if not this evening, then overnight tonight, as it taps into these warm Gulf of Mexico waters. And by the time we get to Tuesday night, 1 a.m. on Wednesday specifically, it is forecast to be a Category 3 hurricane with max sustained winds at 120 miles per hour. And it may stay that strong as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida as we get toward Wednesday morning, and then it curves toward the east coast of the Georgia coast along with South Carolina coast before heading back out to sea during the day on Thursday. Locally in North Alabama, this is going to largely avoid us. We will see some breezy winds, gusts upwards of 25 miles per hour, but we are likely to stay dry from that particular system. The rain we have seen today has kept us a lot cooler than we have been in a while. Current temperatures in the upper 70s and low 80s. We have snuck up to 86 in Huntsville, but I expect us to cool back down here pretty soon because we have a strong storm that has developed here in southeast Madison County, far southwest Jackson, northern parts of Marshall County as well, and it is strengthening to some extent We may be looking at wind gusts upwards of 30 to 40 miles per hour close to Gurley at this moment. Get ready in Gurley. Some heavy rain could be heading your way very soon. It's been raining for a while in New Hope, and this is very close to Owens Crossroads as well. So again, heavy downpours and lightning are the primary threat, but also some gusty winds that could affect travelers along US 72 there in far western Jackson County. Continued light to moderate rain showers and a few thunderstorms in DeKalb County over to Marshall County. The rest of you farther to the west not seeing a whole lot, just some isolated showers in eastern parts of Lawrence County back toward Limestone County and Lincoln County, Tennessee as well. Best chance at severe weather is going to be damaging wind, and that threat will primarily stay around Sand Mountain and for areas farther to the south and east for the rest of the day today. That's primarily where the stormy weather will stay as we head into the early evening. By 10 o'clock this evening, we do start to see a quieting trend, and I expect that to continue as we head into the late night hours. Nothing more than spotty showers here and there possible late in the night tonight. When you head out the door tomorrow morning, it's likely not going to be as active as it was earlier this morning when many of you were dodging showers and storms. But one last chance at scattered showers and storms is expected to develop as we head toward Tuesday afternoon. This could develop near Huntsville during that time and then pushes toward northeast Alabama, clears out by dinner time, and we're looking at a quiet Tuesday night and likely quiet weather for the rest of the week as well. We do have one more muggy day ahead of us tomorrow, and then things looking a lot drier, a lot more comfortable on Wednesday and Thursday. High temperatures not looking too bad either. Tomorrow's highs in the low to mid 80s. Mid 80s for most of you on Wednesday, although it could briefly get up to the upper 80s around the shoals, and one more round of mid 80s coming our way on Thursday. After that, we're back at it with the summer heat. We're going to flip the page to September here soon, but we're not flipping to fall weather necessarily just yet. Summer heat expected to stick around for the first week of September, and what that means is we have forecast highs in the 90s back into the forecast. That begins on Saturday, continues throughout Labor Day weekend, and most of next week as well. So looking at a dry, warm stretch heading into next week. Actually, Marie, tomorrow looks like our best chance at rain for a while over the next 10 days.
All right. A major rocket launch is set to take place tomorrow in Florida. We take a look at its ties right here to North Alabama. Breaking news just into our Way 31 newsroom this evening. A Fort Payne school teacher is in jail tonight after police arrested her for being drunk in the classroom. Melissa Harris is now charged with public intoxication, possession of alcohol on school grounds, and possession of a controlled substance. Harris was found to have prescription medication she did not have a prescription for. Fort Payne City Schools and Fort Payne Police are investigating this incident. Well, the U.S. Space Force is less than 24 hours out from seeing incredible views of some of the most distant reaches of the Earth's orbit. ULA will launch its multi-payload Silent Barker mission shortly after 7:30 tomorrow morning. The North Alabama has played a major part in the rocket's development, with several components built right here in North Alabama in Decatur. The launch will be live streamed by ULA starting at 7:15 a.m. Keep that rain gear handy if you're having dinner plans outside tonight.
Yeah, we have a stronger storm that's developed southeast of Huntsville right now. It's nearly stationary at the moment, but it could drift closer to the city of Huntsville here over the next hour. So here's a final check of 31 triple Doppler. You can see lightning, heavy rainfall associated at the border of the Madison County, Jackson County, and Marshall County. That's the strongest storm we're seeing on 31 triple Doppler at this moment. One last chance at scattered storms as we head into Tuesday afternoon. After that, we are drying out and sitting pretty Wednesday through Friday, but the heat does return just in time for Labor Day weekend.
Well, Way 31 gives you 24/7 coverage. You can count on local news, breaking news, and severe weather. You can watch Way 31 on all of our platforms. And be sure to stay with us for World News Tonight with David Muir right here on Way 31.